You're good, Melissa? Okay, good morning and welcome to the August 13th TUD regular board meeting and call it to order. And Director Balin, would you lead us in the pledge, please?
Certainly. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, public forum. We'd like to welcome members of the public who have taken the time to attend this meeting and provide comments on matters related to district business. Any member of the public may address the board relating to any matter within the board's jurisdiction. This section is for comments on items not listed on the agenda. Persons speaking during the public comment will be limited to 5 minutes, or depending on the number of persons wishing to speak, it may be reduced to allow all members of the public the opportunity to address the board. While no action or discussion may be undertaken by the board on topics presented in this section, board members are listening carefully to these comments and appreciate your input. Is there any members of the public who'd like to address the board? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to item number 2, consent calendar. Melissa.
Minutes of the regular board meeting of July 23rd, 2024, and special board meeting of July 24th, 2024. Item number 2, approval of reimbursement claims for director statement of meetings attended and or travel expenses and claim summary for July 2024.
Is there any director who'd like to pull any of the items on the consent calendar?
I'm sorry to disappoint. No.
Wow. Okay, good. Good deal. All right. Is there any further discussion on the consent calendar? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we accept.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the consent calendar. Any further discussion? Any public comment? Seeing none. All those in favor?
Yes.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Okay, Melissa, item number 3.
Presentation by Kelly Gerkensmeyer of the Calaveras County Water District Water and Wastewater Systems and characteristics of mountain and foothill watersheds.
All right, Kelly, welcome.
Good morning. Before Kelly gets started, I just wanted to introduce Kelly Gerkensmeyer, External Affairs Manager for CCWD, Calaveras County Water District. And we also have, I see Michael Minkler, the General Manager from CCWD, has joined us as well. Kelly is here today to provide a presentation that Director Balin suggested that we bring him over to provide to us. That it was at a Mountain Counties event and she really thought it was a great presentation. And we have a really great partnership with CCWD. In fact, Michael and Kelly were here along with a couple other folks from CCWD, and we talked about various issues and concerns and challenges and opportunities that both of our districts face. And so Kelly has put together, or has, I think, added, maybe there's been a lot of excitement at CCWD even since he presented that to Mountain Counties, and he's got a nice presentation. And what I think is also interesting is Kelly has an extensive background actually in operations for CCWD. So I think that's kind of a cool experience that he brings to the position now. So without further ado, I'll send it over to Kelly.
Welcome,
Thank you very
Kelly.
much. Yeah, that was quite the title for this agenda item. We weren't really sure what to call it. And is it going to come up on this screen here? Okay, great. So yeah, it's an honor to be here. And it's kind of funny with this presentation. When I gave this presentation for Mountain Counties, I really wasn't sure entirely what it was going to be and what I wanted to communicate. And there were so many different things. And even the night before, I used some mapping for Aqua Region 3, and I realized some of the counties were different, and I just was kind of going too fast, and I realized I left out Yuba County. I had an extra county, so the night before the presentation, I'm madly fixing it because I had to have it right, and then that night we were having power outages, and it was just a nightmare. So I got the map right, and we also have a backup plan. I have it on PowerPoint that Abby is ready to deploy if it doesn't come up. I am sharing the screen.
Yeah, no, it's.
As long as it's not me, I'm okay with that. Yes. But while we're chatting, I guess we're waiting for this to come up. I'd like to ask Director Barbara, what did you like about the presentation that really wanted to invite me to come here? I'm really curious about what you took away from that and what inspired you to, for this honor.
A couple of things, Kelly. One of the first ones was, we have, also with TUD, as with CCWD, we have a lot of talent within our ranks. And so given an opportunity to shine somewhere else, which is what you were in, I believe, operations, is that, where were you before you became the public affairs person?
Yes, I just started my 23rd year with CCWD. I started in operations. I started actually as they called it summer help at the time. It wasn't really an internship, but it was a full-time temporary position. And I was just kind of the guy that did everything. I went to the collection crew or the distribution crew or painted lift stations, cleaned up around facilities, just did everything. And it was a 6-month period. And during that time, a collection worker position came open. I applied for that and I started off as a collection worker. Did some really interesting things on that crew and kind of brought some technical skills to it too. And at the time, the IT manager needed some help. And so I went into IT for a brief period, only a few months, not too long. And then at that time, a position came open in distribution up in the Ebbets Pass area, which is where I'm from, born and raised in Arnold. And that's really where I wanted to go. And so I applied for the distribution position, got that position, and pretty much was on that crew for most of the rest of my career. In 2007, I became the foreman for that area and was there until just a couple of years ago when a water resource specialist position came open. And just really intrigued by the opportunity to learn more about the watersheds and our water rights and just become more well-rounded in CCWD. And so I applied for that position. And during that time, I just dove really deep into the maps and the water rights. And just, I love that watershed. I was born and raised in it. And I obviously impressed Michael and he took a chance and gave me the opportunity to become water resource specialist. And then during that time, this position came open and tried to take some of my technical skills and presentation skills. And here I am. Now I'm presenting to you guys, which is, again, an honor. So
Great.
yeah.
Yeah, thank you for going back into your background because that's really what struck me is that ability to work with our employees and make sure that they have those opportunities to grow, such as yourself. So that was good. So the second thing is that I was really impressed with the PowerPoint in that my generation, we look at PowerPoints as sort of glorified weird slideshows, all the text, citing references, maybe talking heads, no hardly, or graphics aren't labeled or too tiny, and there it is. And I'm not being negative, yeah, a little bit, but we're used to that sort of migration of the glorified PowerPoint, slideshow. Okay. So what I find is really wonderful is that you're taking a medium and bridging some generations with it and using graphics in a really, a way that really explains your system. So with us, we just have 2 revenue streams right now, water and sewer. And you have hydro, et cetera. I won't go into it, but in recreation, et cetera, and water and sewer. And so I just feel that this would be a value to our board as we look at perhaps diversifying our revenue portfolio and diversifying our water resources in a watershed context. So at any rate, I think that with your visuals that you were doing, I just think it'll be a value to us here. Okay.
I'm really glad you say that because I love doing these presentations and PowerPoint kind of gets a little boring to me too. And I try to make it to where when you see that image on the screen, you really, your brain understands what it is, or you're intrigued, or it's an interesting way to put it. During one of the recent fires in Copperopolis, I had quite a few people. I think I had 3 people come up to me and ask if the water that comes out of the hydrants is treated, or they don't know that. Or when you talk about the topography that we operate in, how high up we're pumping this water and all that. It's a really wonderful opportunity to present that and show it in a different way. You make so many people kind of wonder, or they're curious and didn't see it that way. So Should we try the PowerPoint?
I'm gonna try one more thing. This is not-
Because I don't mind. I can go that route too. That I had that just in case.
It's the fact that that doesn't matter. It's not.
Oh.
That's, I could see it on Zoom. I can see it on that. It's just not showing up on this. This is broken. I'm talking to the vendor now, but I got one backup.
And it's still not me? Yeah, we gave a really great presentation a couple weeks ago to at an NCPA commission meeting, and I got there early to set everything up, and I didn't want to disrupt everybody who was eating, so I didn't full on set everything up. But I looked at the wiring seemed good, everything seemed fine. And I thought, this is gonna be no problem. I don't need to overthink it or worry about it. And sure enough, there was a few technical issues, and what felt like 2 hours was probably only a couple of seconds or maybe a couple of minutes. Luckily, Michael was there to keep on talking and kind of divert the attention. But of course, you always have to start a presentation with some technical issues.
While we're waiting, it might be a good opportunity to learn about what the mountain counties, I forget if it's September or October, are you involved at all in the tour of the 3/4 mile flume?
Yeah, we're still working on that, and our hope is to do a tour of not the whole system, but kind of where it starts at McKay's Reservoir, which is a reservoir part of our North Fork hydroelectric project. That's kind of the beginning of the water system for Arnold, Ebbets Pass area, Murphy's, Angels Camp, and Utica's and ditch system. So yeah, we're gonna probably have the tour start off at McKay's and then go to the 3/4 mile flume and then go to UPUD's treatment plant and then have a reception that evening. So really looking forward to that. Again, still in the planning stages. We don't have all the details.
So that'll be for directors and for like the target audience for Mountain County members. And is it going to be joint with Utica or?
Yes, it'll be joint with CCWD, Utica, and UPUD. Yeah. And then, of course, Mountain.
Perfect.
Oh, there we go. Let's see, let me make sure I can. All right. Let's see. See my notes. All right, can you guys see it okay on your end?
Yep.
I'll look over there. I like it on a big screen, but.
See how we're just not seeing.
Yeah, I see what you're talking about.
Okay, so yeah, this presentation really started from a legislative advocacy day that we did with mountain counties back in May, I believe May 15th. But several of the agencies went down there, got to put the suit and tie on and just talk about water and how it really affects us up here in this rural community. So it was the first one they've ever done. We went down there with several bills that we wanted to talk about, and for example, SB 1088, which is one that we're really looking at. And so when we went down there, we had all this material. Again, in my mind, the night before, I started thinking, how can I show our mountain counties? How can I show the watersheds? So I started making the maps. And so that purple, it shows blue on here. It's purple on my screen, but that's the mountain counties region. And then those are all the watersheds that pretty much start in that footprint. And again, I think that mountain counties footprint, in my opinion, is the most beautiful in the state. I might be biased, but I'm just going to stick with that. That comes out to be 23.1 million acres of watersheds, again, originating in that footprint. That equals 40% of the state's available water. Essentially 40% of the water originates again in our mountain county region. So that overlay right there, that lighter is all the surface water availability in the state of California. And again, when you see where our footprint is within that, it's quite remarkable. So again, I think everybody in this room understands the critical relationship between our communities, our watersheds, and wildfire, and what it can do. Especially this year, this has been a kind of a scary year. There's fires up and down the state. We had one in our backyard, which I'll talk about here in a moment. My son works for CAL FIRE, and he's been up on that park fire for quite a bit, and it's just frightening, it scares me to think about that quite often. Again, over 2 million California households, approximately 1 in 4 are located in either high or very high fire hazard severity zones. And this is not the most updated map. This is a map from 2023, but it hasn't changed much. And again, it just kind of gives a little bit of a perspective of some of these zones where California falls in there. I'm going to get a little closer on that and show exactly where this Mountain County's footprint is in relation to the moderate fire severity zone, high severity zone, very high severity zone. Once you put it all together, it pretty much just takes over that entire mountain region. Again, I'm sure you guys have all heard about the wildland urban interface, which we all sit well within. Several challenges are associated with that in our rural, water agencies: fire risk management, water quality, supply reliability, and emergency response. I think some of our agencies, I'm sure you guys can relate, quite different than some of the agencies on the valley floor, not worrying about fire protection and keeping those fire hydrants loaded, keeping the tanks full. I was going to save it for the fire section here, but on one of the fires I worked at CCWD, when it was the Butte fire, when the fire was done, the highway was just full of signs. Thank you, firefighters. You guys are the greatest. You're the best. And I'd been working around the clock. I came home, my kids at the time had signs. Thank you, CCWD. So it's really cool. And I really want to show that and explain to people what's going on in the background with the water folks, keeping the generators fueled, keeping the pumps going. And they're right in there with those firefighters, keeping the system running for sure. So here's the WUI interface with mountain counties. And more granular, the footprint for Calaveras County Water District. So while I was going through this, I wanted to take a look at the fires that in our county over the last 100+ years. And it's astonishing. And you can look at this 2 different ways. You can look at it like what's burned, and that's pretty crazy. But when I look at it, I look at what hasn't burned, and that kind of scares me. Some of the footprint, something like my town of Arnold hasn't really burned in over 100 years. So is that more at risk? Is that a good thing? Is it a bad thing? It just shows that we really need to step up our game with forest, fire mitigation and keep that going. One of the more recent fires back in 2015, one of the larger ones that affected Calaveras County Water District, the one I was just talking about where my kids put up the signs, was the Butte fire. Started in Amador County. And really, this was a scary one for our county. We had a couple of deaths, several structures burned down. It really affected our sheep ranch facility. It got to a point where we couldn't get in there anymore to keep the generator going and keeping the water going. So in sheep ranch, we did finally lose our tank. We didn't lose it to fire. What I mean is we lost all the water in it. It went dry. So that was an issue. And then after, we did see some water quality issues downstream in our Jenny Lynn service area. This one, and this was in our backyard. We had several of our own staff being evacuated. So it was scary. And at one time, from what I understand, they were starting to warn Tuolumne County, thinking that, this was going to push into Tuolumne County. So thankfully it did not. Still, the Darby fire, that's another one that was a really big deal for Calaveras County Water District. Everyone has a story, I think, of where they were on 9/11. And that morning of 9/11, I was on the hood of a truck at our facility up there in Arnold during this Darby fire. And this was really interesting. I'd only been at the district for a few months, and I learned really, really quickly how vulnerable our system is. One of the main systems that they were drawing off water is our Reach One system, which was our Reach One pipeline that goes from Hunter's, our treatment plant, down to Forest Meadows. We've since replaced that through our CIP program, but that was a very vulnerable pipe, and we had firefighters from all over the country just slamming that thing open, slamming it closed, and we were just going from leak to leak to leak. There was one leak in Forest Meadows where we came around the corner and I saw a fire engine that was about 18 inches below all the other trucks, because they had they blew out the line and it washed out all the road base underneath the road, and the entire road just sunk about 12 to 18 inches. So that was interesting. But, you know, I learned really quickly again how vulnerable and how scary it is. And that fire, that's the fire that burned 3/4 mile flume and essentially cut off Angels Camp and Murphy's. 10,000 customers downstream, cut them off from water for quite some time. So Donnell Fire, not really in Calaveras County's footprint, but what you see up there is Spicer Reservoir, which is our main reservoir and our main source of water. Again, so these fires are not just in the lowland, they're also getting higher and higher. We just went and toured the Caldor Fire the other day, and again, just what these fires can do to our watersheds is, it could be just devastating, and we can see the effects of that for years. Most recent was the Arrow Fire in Copperopolis. A little over 5,000 acres. That one was a very fast moving fire, a very windy day that day. And the town was evacuated very quickly. And again, our staff just jumped right in. We did have some pump stations that did not have backup generators. They immediately deployed those generators. Electricians wired them up, got them fueled up. And again, we didn't lose any services during that time because of the hard work that our staff did. And again, right here, you can see really how close that encroached to our service area. It really started to get into the service area. Here is the downtown Copperopolis. I left this, I'm not sure if any of you guys can see our tank. It's kind of a Where's Waldo thing. Oh, but there was our tank that feeds that area. And again, that was one feeding that tank was a pump station that didn't have an on-site generator, but again, our guys got that generator ready right away. And, you know, again, we're constantly monitoring it. You know, we had to work really closely with the fire department to.
So did you lose infrastructure there at the tank? Did you lose a pump house or anything like
We
that?
didn't lose anything. There was a few customer issues as far as like some backflows, you know, the backflows that come up.
Mm-hmm.
Few of those melted, but our infrastructure stayed intact.
Oh,
You know, we
nice.
lost comm a few times. One of our generators did, I forgot what went wrong with it. It broke down, but you know, our mechanics were able to get that repaired, but the fire itself luckily didn't burn any infrastructure. But as you can see, it came all the way around that
Oh, yeah.
tank.
Yeah.
Hopefully this plays for you. So yeah, in the days during that, again, our guys are just right up in it as well, keeping that fire going and keeping that water going. And so I put this out on social media. I get to do the social media as well too. So I'm trying to highlight that in engaging ways. And so as we have projects, I'm putting that out there. And you know, this is video that our guys shot while they were in it. And we had this huge giant text thread going with all of our team constantly in contact with them. And I can't say enough about what those guys do on a regular basis.
Yeah, they're sure.
So yeah, all the way around that tank, but.
Kelly, were you able to use, is that a drone shot there?
Yeah. I'm a licensed drone pilot too, so I get to get some of these unique vantage points. So again, this presentation kind of spawned from basically us going and talking about some of these legislative items, you know, and one that we're really monitoring and keeping an eye on is SB 1088, which I think is a good one. It really talks specifically about some of this infrastructure. You know, it talks specifically about fire hydrants and fire flow. And so we're really hoping that this is something that moves forward. I think a lot of the agencies, especially in the mountain counties, would benefit from a bill such as this. Here's maybe another Where's Waldo map. I'm not sure if you guys can guess what I'm showing on the right there, the map. It's, you know, certainly our service areas. But what I did with this map is kind of clustered all of our fire hydrants. And this is one thing, yeah, I use some of these presentations not only to communicate with you folks, but I really want to get to our customers who don't understand this, who don't understand the fire hydrant in front of their house. I have several conversations all the time, mostly with my friends who can have a little more fun with it, but they want to know why they pay for water when they don't use it. You know, we get that all the time, the base rate, right? And I utilize this, you know, we're paying for that infrastructure, we're paying for that fire protection, and it's so crucial. And to me, it's comforting to know that my community has this many fire hydrants in it, you know, that's what they're there for. And when I made this map, that I realized I can essentially outline our service areas just with our fire hydrants, just by making it a little larger. I thought that was pretty cool. So what are some of the things that we're doing for our watershed health and infrastructure protection and of course, community resilience? Right now, we're working on the Dowd's Fuel Break project, it's a grant funded project. Again, I was talking about the Dowd's fire earlier. Essentially, what we're gonna do is we're gonna go in and treat about 145 acres of private property with this grant. And this ridge was crucial in stopping the Dowd's fire. The Cal-Am team, who we're working very closely with, and they've done a tremendous amount of work on this project for us. Pat McGreevy actually sent me some photos of this ridge during the Darby fire, when it was on fire. And this is just crucial to get equipment in and out, and also to get the community out. And this part of the work is going to be also for evacuation routes and just really widening the road. And this is a great project that hopefully will be kicking off in November for us. For West Point, Wilseyville, I should probably jump to the map real quick. So our West Point wastewater treatment plant up, I'm gonna load here in a minute. It's not that blurry on mine. Well, actually it is, but it's really not that blurry.
There it is. There it went.
So there we go. Anyways, yeah, so Phoenix Energy and Blue Mountain Electric Company is proposing to do a 3 megawatt biomass facility up there. It's going to be really, essentially, again, close to our wastewater treatment plant. I just went toured, Michael and I went toured the North Fork. They have a North Fork facility down in North Fork, right by Bass Lake. Have you guys heard anything about these biomass plants?
A little bit, or a little bit.
Super intrigued. I can probably speak about it much better than I can. One of the reasons why I wanted to have this tour on Friday was just to get more involved in it and know more about it. But again, being co-located next to our treatment plant, it'll be cooled with reclaimed water. We'll be able to, some of our biosolids that right now we're shipping off and trucking off, we'll be able to use that as a component as well. We'll be able to hook some of that electricity to our treatment plant, and just I think the possibilities are endless. And I think this technology is really great, and we could really see this kind of technology throughout more of the foothills. Again, when I went to that Caldor fire tour the other day, there's an abundance of material, and they don't know what to do with it. We need to find out something to do with it that is productive, that's good for our forests. And I think this could be it. So this is really exciting. It's nothing's built up there yet. There will be I'm not sure if any of you guys are going to go to the T-stand on the 21st, but there will be a representative from Phoenix Energy speaking about this plant and speaking about this technology a little bit more. So I think that's going to be next Wednesday.
Question.
Yes.
Will they're gonna be a partner with CCWD? The Blue Mountain Electric Company?
Well, we'll be leasing our property. That property is an open mill site, and we'll be leasing that property to them.
So you'll be leasing, CCWD property, okay.
Now I get to talk about CCWD, as far as our infrastructure. I love looking at it like this, the way we're all spread out. Those are pretty much one of our facilities. We have 16 wastewater treatment plants, 6 water treatment plants, 13 wastewater treatment plants, soon to be 12. We're going to be we're working right now as we speak on a consolidation project up in West Wilseyville. 3 reclaim facilities, 2 hydropower facilities, 9 dams, 27 water tanks, 18 water pump stations, and 45 sewer lift stations. I think that's a lot. I think it's pretty amazing too how spread out we are. A lot of these certain water, I believe you guys are quite spread out as well, but a lot of these water agencies are nice little packaged, their footprint's all nice. We're sending mechanics up to West Point That's passed down to copper. So we have a bunch of small areas, but it's over a large footprint. So again, I really like to show what I think is very unique about some of our infrastructure. And one that always comes to mind for me is the lift stations down in Copperopolis. There's 32 lift stations around that lake, and they all work in sequence. One goes to the next, to the next, to the next, and they're all right around the lake. I mean, this kind of gives you perspective. If you can see over by Burns Ferry Bridge, that's where it starts, and then you see where our treatment plant is. It's quite the journey, again, it's a sequence. You lose one, you're not moving, you're not getting water to the treatment plant. So I think it's remarkable. And again, our guys during that fire, a lot of these don't have backup generators too. Even though the town was evacuated, we still saw usage, not everyone evacuated, so they were in there checking each one of these constantly. Because again, we did lose comm for a little bit, so they had to put eyes on each one. No spills. Another one, this one's really amazing to me, is the Evans Pass water system. A lot of times I tell people, how far up we're pumping water, and they don't quite grasp that. So this is truly how the water moves up over 2,000 feet. See, our Hunter's water treatment plant is the lowest section there, and we're pumping it all the way up to the trees. Right away. For example, a couple of years ago, that Avery tank, which is essentially the second one from the treatment plant, we had a really bad winter storm. The road getting to that treatment or to that tank you couldn't get it through. We were out of power for over a week there. Couldn't get fuel trucks. We had a little side by side with tracks and a 115-gallon diesel tank, and we were just going round the clock, just that thing fueled. Again, it's that sequence. You can't take that out of the equation, or else we're not moving water. Kept it going, and no outages.
Question?
Yeah.
Do all these have, so you're pumping water?
Yep.
A total of over 2,000 feet?
Yep.
And where are the pumps located?
There's that one at the very top. See, all those are pump stations. The second one from the top is its own pump station without a tank at that location. All of them are at the tank sites. Basically, we pump to the next tank, and then that tank site is a pump station as well, going to the next one.
And do they all have generators, base power?
All these have generators, yes. We have one that feeds timber trails that does not have a permanent generator, but we have temporary generators with all the wiring connections ready to deploy at any, when we need to. But all the larger ones have huge generators, about the size of this room. Yeah, I mean, we're moving some water. Some of those are moving 35 100 gallons a minute. Metamont pump station where it comes to Sawmill, and those pumps start off, we're seeing about 500 PSI on those valves. Because they're starting a pump control valve, which is a closed valve. So that way you start the pump and that valve slowly opens. So you don't just slam it, right? And then in those facilities too, they have these surge anticipators. What happens is you're pumping 2,500 to 3,000 gallons a minute, power shuts off, that valve checks closed. But the thing is that all the water is still moving. Yep. So we have these surge anticipators. I apologize for telling you guys that here, but when these surge anticipators go off, it scares you. So that senses the no pressure, and that surge anticipator opens. As that column comes back, that valve is open, so the water can dissipate into the tank. And that's how we keep that from blowing our pump station. But when we test those, it just makes noise because it's regulating the pressure. So it's regulating the low pressure, regulating the high pressure, and it's just doing all sorts of stuff. And you're kind of nervous. But we had one of those pumps at the Metamont pump station, what I'm talking about with that high pressure, one of the heads to it did blow up one day. And when we got to that pump station, there was water pouring out of, we put your key into the door, so it's about 3 feet. There was water coming out about 6 inches above that. The entire pump station was moving water. So it's quite the feat, and I use this graphic when I talk to a Firewise at a Firewise event, not too long, but just showing what's in the background, how does the system work. I've met so many people that have lived in this region that has passed all their life and didn't know anything about this, didn't know how the water works. And again, it all takes energy, a tremendous amount of energy in the form of electricity,
you're bringing up something that I was sitting here looking at this and it was almost shocking to me. I mean, we do, TUD does tremendous amount of pumping also, and we're constantly looking for ways to consolidate and cut it down. And one of the things I do every month is go through the claim summary. And my eyes roll back in my head when I see what our power consumption is. What is this here looks outrageous. I mean, that has to be huge, the power consumption on this system here.
Yeah, I don't know what it is just for the system, but it is quite a bit. Again, when we were trying to communicate that to our rate study, you know, at that time our power bill just in 1 year had doubled. And that's quite a bit. And you know, I know folks keep wanting solar, and solar is not there right now with this kind of water. This amount of water, it just doesn't pencil out for us at this point. But yeah, it's a lot. It's water up the hill.
So you're using PG&E as well as the power that comes from New Maloney's.
Yes, yeah. We use CPA.
Yeah, Kelly, you got some great slides here. And that's tagging on here to Director Ringen's comments. That's one thing I believe all of us as water agencies, we just struggle with trying to explain what it takes to deliver water to the tap. And it's, not only is it hard to explain, but it's hard for the customer to understand. And it's, you know, we all do our best and I think we do a pretty good job, but there is so much going on behind that tap, and that's what drives our rates. That's the biggest thing that drives our rates. And like I said, I commend you. You got some great slides here.
Thank you very much. And that's my goal.
Separate the mic and the laptop a little bit. The frequency is, yeah, frequency helps. Thank you.
Yeah, that's my goal. First of all, we people with this stuff and people think magically comes out of the tap. You know, I think we need to change that. Not magic. And there's also a perception of you're paying for something you're not getting. For instance, that's I understand that, I really do, but I'd like to really change the perception of you are getting something, you're getting high quality product, you're getting fire protection. Without this water, there's no community. It's just wouldn't be there. So my goal, my quest is that people really see that and be proud of what you're contributing to.
And I think too that part of the discussion always needs to be, well, it's there when you want it. I mean, one of the arguments that I hear a lot is, well, I'm not at that home. It's my summer home. I'm only there once in a while. And yeah, but the water's there ready for you to use at any time.
And yeah, I think state fire component. You know, that it is there to use anytime, but also there to protect your neighbor's home. Just protect this place that we love. Be devastated. The fact that we have this infrastructure that can help that, I'm happy to pay for that. I'm right there too. I'm right there to CWD. As long as they're paying bills, you know, I'm gonna bring there. So this was something that our board asked us to come to them 2 months ago. One of our board members really wanted to see some of the infrastructure investments that we've had over the last decade. As I started putting this together, I wanted to go back further because you know we get a lot of that. What have you done? What did you do with the last rate increase? You're not building anything when we're building so much. We're putting in so much, so many of these projects. And you can see there's quite the uptick. And it's not just going back to 2013. You know, that was a big uptick for us. And at that time, we established our CIP component of our rates. Really allocated money just for this kind of infrastructure. And as you can see, there's been a gradual uptick just in that decade. But when I started putting this project, this list together, I put pictures and I talked about all the different projects. Then I realized it's been going back even further. I think back at the beginning of my career, looking to those old timers, not to go on old timers, but those were the guys that they knew about lines that used to break all the time on them, some of the old cross country lines. And so I looked into that, and you know, for us, the 90s were really busy, the 2000s were really busy. We're constantly, you guys know that once you fix one project, it's on to the next. There's so much infrastructure that needs to be upgraded. So during that time, again, we spent over $51 million. Oh, all right. Approximately, on average, during that time, 32% of our operating budget was specifically towards CIP projects and construction projects. Some of those projects, this is another slide that I utilized to show the Evans Pass system. This was, I built this slide when I talked at that Firewise event to kind of just, this was for that community. So I was able to show them exactly where their water came from. And again, all three of these projects I worked on. All three of these projects called me out in the middle of the night. All three of these projects, I gave up family vacations to come fix. And so to see them fixed and then now to come communicate it is really, really special for me because these were a nightmare. And again, it goes back to that link in the chain. Look at, like, for instance, that middle one, Reach 3A. That went through the heart of Arnold. I don't have it on this slide, but on 4th of July weekend, 2013, that thing blew. 4th of July weekend, this was Friday, as everyone's coming up to the cabins. It was a 150-foot geyser. Huge. We had to shut down while we made the repair almost all of town. They didn't really spread out the valves very well. Luckily, we designed the new one and worked really closely with the engineers, and they listened to us and we put valves the right places. This will never happen again. Even if the leak happens, we designed the system to not disrupt the community. There's appropriate valves because with that system, we can run it two different directions, you know, and so we designed it to where 70 years from now, when the next guy like me is having to fix it, because hopefully, you know, it's at the end of its life at that time, hopefully longer, there's appropriate valving. So engineers, you gotta listen to your staff out there. They know what's up. But yeah, these are all great projects. That Techite, I'm not sure if you guys have ever heard that word, Techite.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, isn't that horrible? Do you guys still have some in there?
We're replacing it as we speak.
Yes, I understand that stuff is awful. It's awful to repair. When that would flap open, we would lose that upper tank. It would drain 70 to 90,000 gallons in a matter of 20 minutes sometimes. And every time, you know, when SCADA would call and it would say low level at that, you just knew, well, there goes the next 24 hours of my life fixing it. So thank God. I wish you guys luck, and I'm really glad you're getting that replaced because that's an awful product. Another project we're really proud of in 2022, we partnered with the county and we repurposed essentially a tank that we already had. It's a 125,000 gallon tank that we put in Sheep Ranch specifically for fire suppression. It's raw water and we have a purple pipe off of it. And ironically, when we had the ribbon cutting for this tank, a fire started down the street and they actually filled up out of that fire hydrant. It was only a debris burn that got out of it. It didn't turn into a big fire, but the day of the ribbon cutting, we used it. It was phenomenal. I was like, it wasn't planned. It wasn't planned.
Did they accuse you of having it staged?
Yeah, I mean, we couldn't have planned it any better, but yeah, it was crazy, but they actually did use that. And so this is a great project. Yeah. But again, this is in the heart, you know, I mean, that Butte fire came right up to Sheep Ranch. It was right there. And you know, you guys know how these ridges are. If we can stop a fire on this ridge or at least help it from getting into the next, that's a good thing. So another great thing about this is when we go to rehab this tank, we will have the ability, some appropriate valving was put in. So if we have to, we can go finish that valving and utilize this tank while we have to rehabilitate this one, because the tank there on the right is basically our clear well and our tank for Sheep Ranch. We only have one tank there. So it acts as both as the clear well and the tank.
And the tank on the left is the raw water tank?
Yeah.
How's it supplied with water?
There's just a three-way valve.
Surface water?
Yes, from the San Antonio, basically from White Pines, which I'll talk about here in a minute. You had a question?
No, it's just that you can use the raw water there, for fire protection. It's really clear.
Yeah,
That's
Yeah.
great. Not
yeah,
treated.
that's, again, and we ran a hydrant right on the road, so a water tender can pull right up and fill off of it. So, to my knowledge, that's the only time it's been really used was during that time, but just knowing it's there is great. And again, I think the way they designed it for us moving forward because we will have to rehabilitate that, we will have to recode it. So I think it's a great project. Another one that I think really plays into some of the fire mitigation is we replaced 8 of our redwood tanks with 7 glass line steel tanks. We also just recently replaced another one in Copperopolis. And I believe we just have one left. It's off Sheep Ranch Road. It's called our Timber Trails tank, but another great project that really bolsters the fire. Not only did we upsize the tanks, but they're much more resistant than the redwood. Even though the redwood's beautiful and amazing, I think this is a really good project. And we'll just show you real quick. Hopefully this loads. Just how fast we take these things down. This is another, something I put out on social media, just trying to show how a tank gets taken down and how you rebuild it. This is in Forest Meadows. The redwood was reclaimed through the contractor. It's beautiful redwood. And then we chose on these ones, this particular project was the bolted steel tanks. It's really fascinating. I'm not sure if you guys have seen this before, but they build it from the top and they, you'll see it here. They do the whole roof and then jack it up and do the next layer and then jack it up.
Oh,
That's a good idea. Nice.
Another current project in Copper Cove, back to those lift stations. We're replacing 4 of those lift stations with new lift stations. So that's another great thing. It's kind of a difficult project. It's really tight in there in Poker Flat. There's not a lot of room to work. So, but they're getting it done. And, some of these pump stations have to be bypassed. You got to move that material no matter what, even during construction. So that's made some challenges. And that's another thing that I'd like to communicate is just the process of the building and what goes into there's almost like a separate engineering project with the temporary portion of it, and bypassing of water lines and sewer lines is amazing.
question, yeah. Do you use force account and a combination of force account, your own crews and contracting?
This particular one, no, this is Mazingo's doing this project. So this is something that we put out to bid. This is a full-on CIP construction project. But we do have an in-house construction crew that is just phenomenal. They could do this. The foreman for that crew is amazing. I think he's been probably running the backhoe since before he could walk, and just all equipment, but he's got talent. So we have a very talented construction crew that could do a lot of these projects, but this is that West Point Wilseyville wastewater consolidation project that I was talking about. Again, another good project that I try to push out on social media and just kind of show. This is the other day the inspector called me and said, hey, we're spraying the gunite on it, get up here. And so I go up there, he gives me a tour, I get some drone footage, and here in a minute you'll see these guys spraying gunite on this, and I think that's pretty cool. But with our social media accounts and with the different things, the different outreach, I'm finding that people are really gravitating towards seeing the construction, seeing either, our guys working on a leak or what we're building. It gives it a whole new component. I mean, it's West Point. This is kind of you don't see it from the road. You don't know it's there. again, which even more mysterious than water coming out of your tap is where the other stuff goes, you know, and so this is kind of interesting. That's another thing I want to do is kind of give that journey of, you know, basically toilet to treatment plant to wherever and really show that. So again, now I'm gonna take a little spin on our watershed portion. And this is a new slide that was, I mean, I reused it, but this wasn't part of the presentation. This was, I got an email last night from one of your directors who wanted to talk a little bit about White Pines. And so White Pines is a great lake up there in White Pines. You might want to say it's Arnold, but it's not Arnold. There's a sign there that says White Pines is not Arnold. They're very prideful of that. But White Pines is a recreational facility, but it's also, it's the source water for Sheep Ranch, which I just showed you a second ago. Just recently, our construction crew, we did this in-house project where we cleared the tules. It's been about a 3-year project. The tules around the dam and the spillway have really just encroached. And this is a kind of a funny video where we got our guys out there and so you can recreate on this lake while watching construction. It's all part of the package. You can. So this is again, something I put out on social media, kind of showing what we're doing. The first year we started this project, there was some concern, you know, about the environment and removing this vegetation, but we've really gotten some good feedback from the community. The lake looks phenomenal. There's way more shoreline, you know, it improves the water quality, improves the storage, and we've really got a lot of positive feedback from this project and the cleanup that was done. It was long overdue, long overdue.
Question. So in White Pine, this is pretty much in the heart of, you know, from Murphy's, you know, up to Meadowmont or et cetera. I mean, this is where locals go to recreate. I would imagine, at least that when I've been there, and it's a CCWD facility.
Yes.
And it's fed by San Antonio Creek.
Yes.
Do you put water in San Antonio Creek to fill this, or is this just?
We do not, you know.
This is a historic log dam.
Yes, yeah, there's a mill pond right above it from the historic, yeah, right where the lake is, that's pretty much where the mill was. And then the mill pond is right above it.
So my question is, because in our county here, a lot of locals end up recreating with the hordes up in Pinecrest. And so my question to you is, is this primarily used for locals, or is it a mix, and is it balanced?
It's a definite mix. Several folks come up. I mean, we have other lakes in town, but most of those are homeowners association style lakes where you have to be a member. This is really the only one that's open to the public in that area, unless you go up a little bit higher country. But it's a great lake. There's a ball field there. Really fun rec softball league and great logging museum. I recommend you guys take a look at that. It's right on the lake as well. Kind of shows some of the pictures of the facility and the history of logging in the area.
Just a follow-up question. How do you pay for it? How does the district pay for it? The recreational facility? Is there a board? Is there do people pay admittance, or how does it pay for itself?
Well, we don't charge for admittance. No, we do have a great park committee who takes care of everything. They do a phenomenal job, but paying for it, no, there's no specific component to pay for that facility.
The White Pines Park Committee does a lot of fundraising on their own, volunteer organization, raises a lot of money for all the facilities that are out there. They're CCW, we don't have the money to spend on playground or within ball. That's not something CCW would necessarily spend money on, but they raise a lot of money for volunteers.
Yeah, they just recently did a car show, and they're very active. It's a very good group. They work hard. So here's one of my favorite watersheds of all time, the Upper Stanislaus, the upper part, not the lower part. Of course, everyone knows it's a Huck 8. It's number 180400010, right? But you guys all know that, right? Okay. Again, the component that really feeds our neck of the woods, our Highway 4 corridor, is that upper sliver there, which is Highland Creek, upper North Fork Stanislaus, middle North Fork Stanislaus, the lower North Fork Stanislaus, and Beaver Creek. That all feeds our North Fork Stanislaus hydroelectric project, a project that we are very proud of. Really just extensive history on this project. This has pretty much been conceptualized since CCWD was formed in 1946. We really got working on it right off the bat in 1947, and it came to fruition in the mid-80s. And right now we're going through the relicensing process. We need to relicense this project by 2032. And again, it's a beautiful facility, starting up in the high country there with the North Fork Diversion Dam, getting that water over to Spicer and moving us all the way down to, again, McKay's, where we'll have that presentation. That's where the water enters a large diameter tunnel and goes down to Coyerville. And on its way to Coyerville, that's where Ebbets Pass and Utica get water there at the Hunter's Water Treatment Plant. Again, construction was between 1985 and 1989. Something that that corridor is just really proud of is the work on this project. We'll be doing more outreach on this project in the coming months with some history, and I look forward to, or invite you guys to come take a look at some of those presentations as well. Just an amazing project, did really good things for that corridor, and we're really lucky to have it. Again, so there's the North Fork again, and we'll end with footage of last year when it was plumb full, a nice windy day up there on the lake. And last year during that huge winter, the lake was the lowest and the highest it had been in 10 years, just in one season. So beautiful. And if nobody's been up there, if any of you guys have not been up there, I really recommend you take a look. Another great recreational component of our watershed.
Question, how much money do you guys make off your hydro?
Yeah, so we, two hydropower projects, the Norfolk is by far the big one. There was a lump sum payment to CCWD at the outset, and then a fixed royalty that is now somewhere, I think, close to around $900,000 a year. And then off of New Hogan is the other one that we have, a very small hydro project. That one fluctuates a lot more. The hydrologic conditions, power market. Here. So it's and then the Norfolk project though, really it was a $16 million lump sum payment around the commercial operation date that to start a lot of these facilities and grants to other smaller agencies, Powers County helped it build up their facilities. So the seed money kind of that came from the Norfolk project really helped big part of the pressure for Powers.
Just follow, I'm sorry.
No problem.
So, does this power, so you get, revenue from the sale of this power, and you got a lump sum, which is great, and then you get a yearly chunk. Does it offset the pumping costs? Do you use some of that locally?
No, we don't. So, and we don't actually get, our revenue is not tied to the power production from the facility. It's a fixed royalty. The Northern California Power Agency takes all the power off the project. They distribute it to their member agencies, which are all over Northern California. So City of Palo Alto, Port of Oakland, Santa Clara, Redding, Nevada, they're retail power providers, so the power goes to those. But we get some revenue off of the project process of negotiating the structure of that arrangement. The license expires in 2032 January. We'll see.
Any other questions?
Ron? Mhm.
Okay, well, first of all, I see that, the majority, if not all of your water, is from way up the hill, correct? I mean, your watershed is not lower down.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, well, my question was gonna be, with the, Butte Fire, what you folks did, in order to alleviate, if you had any suggestions for us, let me put it that way. Thank God we have not had a fire down that low so far. The rim fire came close, but it didn't get into really into the WUI or anything like that to any real extent. But that's really a concern for us. And part of our watershed is lower. Phoenix Lake Reservoir and the area going back up Sullivan Creek is part of our watershed, and it's a big concern. And I was just wondering if you folks had any words of wisdom for us, what you did to alleviate the effects from the fire. But apparently your water comes from higher up, so you didn't have to really get involved in that.
That region is lower level. I mean, I only showed you a portion of our watersheds. We do operate in 3 different watersheds. We operate in the McCollum, the Calaveras, and the Stand. I only showed the Stand, so where the Butte Fire was in our lower watershed of the Calaveras. And we did see some effects of it. However, it was also right off the heels of that really bad drought of 14-15. And so we did install a pre-treatment facility at Jenny Lind to help with that. It's not operational at the moment. I mean, it could be, we could deploy it, but words of wisdom, I think, I guess we should try to do everything we can not to let those kinds of fires get out of control. Proper
Absolutely.
forest, mitigation is getting very active in that part of it. But yeah, that region is a lower level watershed. That's not so much dependent on the higher country snowmelt. The very top of the Calaveras watershed is actually Dorrington, right there behind the Lube Room, that meadow, and White Pines. That's kind of the tippy top of the Calaveras watershed.
Did you folks have any issues like Paradise did with contaminants getting into your system from the Butte Fire?
No,
With homes going up
not
in
for us. It
flames?
didn't burn into any of our facilities or our customers. Most of the structures that were damaged were in Mountain Ranch and on wells, not really in our, even when it came up to Sheep Ranch, none of our customers' homes burned, which I think that's really the main issue with Paradise is, their services and their meters and their meter boxes, and then the house, all the contaminants from the house and the house plumbing. But we didn't have that issue with the Butte Fire, thankfully.
Great. And then one of the things that I've been watching over the years was contamination from marijuana grows that are clandestine back in the woods nobody knows about, and the pollution from that getting into the water, as well as PFAS in the fire retardant that's dropped by the firefighting crews. Any of that been an issue for your water, and how did you alleviate it?
Not currently, then, we're still navigating that. We have started doing some testing in our Highway 4 corridor and not really seeing issues with that, thankfully. I've been to a few conferences where, there's some districts really struggling with the PFAS, and thankfully as of now, we're not seeing those issues yet. So.
Okay, thank you.
Sure, go ahead, Barbara.
So speak a little bit about the money, the loan or the grant you recently got that McClintock was instrumental in for your Copperopolis area. All right, do you know what I'm speaking of? Okay.
Yeah, oh, this one's right up Michael's alley.
Okay.
Should I go up there or stay?
Sure, come on up, Michael. Yeah.
Yeah, no, this is a great, I'm mainly here just because I enjoy Kelly's presentations as much as everybody else. But I also like kind of regretting that I haven't been here sooner. I've been at CCWD for a little more than 5 years now, and I should have come over here a long time ago to at least introduce myself. I know some of you very well, and others I don't know well at all, and I regret that I hadn't been here sooner. But on that project, so that's actually not a grant program. That's the Army Corps of Engineers Section 219 Environmental Infrastructure Program. So it's a legislative budget appropriation. And it is that's why I was late here. I was on another meeting with the Army Corps. It is, we're really grateful for the federal funding that's come in so far. We've received 13.2 million in federal budget, federal budget appropriations. It is an incredibly difficult program to navigate. I don't think the Corps would even disagree with me in saying that. So it's been a long road. Those budget appropriations have come over 3 separate fiscal years, and we probably started 2 years before that trying to get into the door, and we're still asking for more this year, and having really, struggling to kind of get to implementation. It's not a typical grant program where you get you do the work and you get reimbursed, USDA or the water board that we're all accustomed to. This is the Corps actually has to award the construction contract and do the project. And so with us doing the design and being very involved in what's going to happen, but relinquishing that, I'm sure engineers and operators would, having somebody else come in and do the construction on your project or on your facility is a little bit nerve-wracking, but we're hopefully next year we'll be in construction, and it's been a long road to get there. Yeah, did you have another question?
I might have missed it, but you may have said it, but the title, the actual project, the name of the thing.
Yeah, sorry, that's so for our copper wastewater treatment plant, where all those pump lift stations that Kelly showed you pump to, we have a capacity issue there, and we also have a tertiary filter there that's beyond its useful life. And so our ability to reclaim water is really compromised right now. And then we also run right up against our storage capacity at our treated effluent storage pond there. So we need to raise the dam on that pond and replace our tertiary filter. We're hoping to be able to do all of that with this funding, but the cost of those projects keeps going up, and so the longer the project draws out, the more we have to go back and ask for more money, and hopefully it'll keep coming to fund the full project. But we're kind of having to look at alternative scenarios now. We'll get a big chunk of it done with this though.
Is it secondary or tertiary?
Tertiary, the filter that needs to be replaced is a tertiary filter. We're adding a pre-treatment suspended air flotation process to the tertiary filter as well, but basically replacing the whole tertiary filter. But then to raise the dam, we have to relocate the pipelines and pumps that are on the back of the dam. So there's a lot that goes into all of that. The tertiary filter takes the treated effluent out of the pond and sends it to a golf course and a wetland that's managed by the Saddle Creek CSD. And then so the tertiary water is used for irrigation, and we're struggling to keep that plant running. It's only been through the determination of our operators and the ingenuity of our operators that they've kept it going as long as they have. If I could take a couple of things, Kelly and I we were talking about how do you summarize this presentation, or how do we put a title on it? And it occurred to me as I was watching it that really, I think what we're talking about is the interconnection between our infrastructure and wildfire risk, and how critical our infrastructure is to protecting our communities. That's what SB 1088 is about, is providing funding for water systems
in part to serve that fire suppression purpose, which is not always available. So we're hoping that that has a chance. And it's, you know, never more stark than copper a couple of times. That arrow fire, you know, we have a bottleneck in our water distribution system, and the pump that feeds that tank that the fire burned around. We can't get enough water there. And so we had to, in the middle of that fire, we had to tell the fire departments to go to the other side of town to draw off of different hydrants that don't draw from that tank because of this limitation that we have in the water system. And fire departments don't like that phone call, understandably. But they were, you know, so one of the, you know, to your question, Director Ringen, I think one of the things that we've worked on is really trying to foster relationships with the fire departments in advance and try to make them aware of some of those limitations and some of those issues. So that when they do get that call, they're not surprised by it. They go, at least the local agencies will go, yeah, okay, we know what you're talking about. We know where to go. You know, in a big fire, a big response, you might have fire departments from other parts of the state, and it becomes a little bit harder. But at least with the local agencies, you know, we've tried to really build that relationship so that they know what we're talking about and what, you know, why we're telling them to do that. Because we did that a few years ago. I don't remember the incident. And the response we got was, you know, you must be out of your mind. We're going to keep doing whatever it is that we want to do. And it's not until you tell them the water's just not going to be there and you're going to damage our infrastructure until they finally, you know, understood and moved off. This time we didn't have that issue. They knew what we were talking about. You know, they were able to move off. But we also don't want to have to do that. And so finding funding to address those bottlenecks in the distribution system so that we can provide that fire suppression infrastructure, I think is huge. Because we also know lingering in the background is that strict liability issue, you know, where if our infrastructure fails, fire spreads in the community because of the infrastructure failure, even if it was no fault of our own, that liability is on us, whether that's fair or not. That's the fear that we have, in addition to just, you know, protecting the community, because that's our job.
Is there any possibility to use some of that tertiary treated water, put it in purple pipe and use that for firefighting down in that area? Or is that just too expensive to install?
It's probably not enough, and it'd be costly to do that. We have you know, we have the distribution system that can serve that, you know, that can feed those hydrants. It's just we have some bottlenecks in that distribution system. But that particular tank is on the furthest opposite side of Copperopolis that you can get and still be in Copperopolis. And so to get purple pipe all the way there would be pretty challenging. Where we did that in Sheep Ranch, Kelly showed that the tank that we did up there. Sheep Ranch is very small community, not a lot of connections, and our the intake that feeds our treatment plant there is 30 gallons a minute. The 1-inch line that is the intake to the treatment plant. So when there's a fire there, the one tank that we had, you know, it's gone very quickly, and we can't refill it. We can't keep up. And so that was the why we wanted at least to have some additional, even if it's just raw water, you know, additional water supply where that tank's full, water tenders can fill up, because that area burns regularly, and it gives them at least a better fighting chance, because that's, you know, a slow road to get out there. So if those water tenders have to go all the way back to Highway 4 before they can refill, you know, we're just hindering the firefighting effort at that point. There are no fire hydrants in that distribution system. And so that one purple pipe fire hydrant that's connected to that 125,000 gallons now at least gives them more of a fighting chance. So I think that's kind of the overarching theme, though, is how our infrastructure and our workforce, the labor that goes into it during those events is connected to and affected by wildfire, as you guys have experienced it, you know, just as many times as we have. And it's a scary part of the job. The other piece I just wanted to touch on real quick too, that biomass power plant, we're really excited about. I think, you know, they're small, so 3 megawatts isn't huge, but it will have a pretty significant impact in just a regular source of revenue for fuel thinning around those communities where they're located. And it has to be sustainable forest management practices in order to comply with the regulatory program that it's under. So it's not clear cutting the forest like some people hear biomass power and they kind of bristle. But these are really responsibly thought out. They provide really good jobs and often in communities like West Point that have struggled to recover from mills being shut down. There's just a lot of different benefits to these projects. I think we should have a whole fleet of them up and down the Sierras to help protect those really vulnerable communities. So I'm excited that Phoenix will be here next week. And you know, maybe there's a TUD site, because what we've uncovered in West Point is kind of by accident, the benefits of co-locating that power plant next to our infrastructure and how we can benefit from the power. We currently truck our biosolids to Sassoon, it's the closest landfill that'll take them. They'll be able to throw it into their fuel mix and save us all of those trucking costs. So there's just a lot of different benefits to co-locating these facilities. And Phoenix is now very excited about that, being able to look at, well, where else can we find, you know, water or wastewater infrastructure that needs, you know, a source of sustainable fuel thinning nearby. So, you know, I think we kind of stumbled across something that we should hopefully be able to replicate elsewhere. We're already looking at another site in Arnold.
Just to clarify something on that.
Sure.
So you're thinking, okay, that totally makes sense, is to have those co-located right there because of the trucking costs, you know, the fuel costs are just to go all the way to some cogeneration plant in the valley or something. So that really makes sense. So you've also looked at your biosolids and looked at, okay, so maybe we can, would you then include them in the mix and create a product, or is this this is to burn?
So if the Phoenix folks were here, they would, you know, slap me on the knuckles if I said burn. Because they don't like us to use the word burn because they're not actually burning the fuel mix. It's the gasification process that they use is really cool. They bake the wood chips in 1,000°C ovens, essentially, in a no oxygen environment, so it doesn't combust, but it extracts the gas out of the wood, and then they use that after a lot of cleaning. The gas from the wood is what's used to fire the generators. And then you're left with the byproduct is biochar, which is charcoal, that is become a valuable product in and of itself. They're now able to sell that. Farmers love it as a soil amendment because it bonds to water. It increases the water retention in their soil. Caltrans loves it. It's great for SWIP. So it's great for water filtration for stormwater. It's great for odor control, depending on how you use it. It's a really pretty remarkable product. And, you know, so that's one of the other side byproducts that comes from it. But as far as our biosolids, so that being added to the mix, it's really this tiny amount, I think less than 1% of what their fuel mix will be. And so they probably won't even notice it. But they have plants in Europe that run 100% on biosolids. That's a different application of the same process. And so you can really fuel those plants with biosolids. We don't produce enough. It'll be a small mix, a small part of the mix, but it saves us a lot of money on trucking and hauling those biosolids down the hill. We've had some questions about whether there's going to be odor or trucking those things on the roads, and I don't know. For infrastructure nerds, to me, the thought of the grid being partially powered by human waste is really exciting. I just think that's so cool that we can do that. You know, we have to get over that sort of ick factor sometimes with some people, so. But to me, I think it's just, there's a lot to be excited about with that project. They're really difficult to finance. The whole crew that has been behind that project for a long time, it started as a volunteer community effort in West Point. And then transitioned to Phoenix, and it's just taken 12 years now, I think. And they're still struggling to get the final piece of financing in place, but we're hoping it'll start construction later this year.
Glenn, Director Jacobs.
Yeah, thank you so much for your, for taking the time to join us. I'm loving the atmospheric collaboration I'm sensing between our two agencies. And I know General Manager Perkins mentioned during the Arrow fire, there were some mutual assistance offered. Could we maybe talk just a few seconds about how we as agencies collaborate and help each other?
I'm really glad you asked that question. It's been awesome. You know, I can't thank Don and Abby and his team enough for reaching out. It really, you know, they were the ones that initiated it a few years ago to negotiate the mutual assistance agreement that we have now. And, you know, we were able to do that, and that has now evolved into, you know, regular meetings among members of our management teams. And just, you know, we're very similar agencies. We share a lot of the same challenges. And so that information exchange has been really valuable for us, and I can count on it. Now I know when a fire breaks out in Calaveras County, we all have the Watch Duty app now, right? That tells you when a fire breaks out. Well, usually the next thing is Dawn saying, "Hey, do you guys need anything?" And it's awesome. You know, and I hope we're reciprocating enough, because you know, it just makes all kinds of sense for our agencies to have that kind of working relationship. Yeah, it's been fantastic.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
Yeah.
Director Ringen.
So along with that, I want to make sure that, which I'm pretty sure you already are well aware of, but next week will be the T-Stan Irwin meeting. And I have been pushing real hard for us to reboot, so to speak, because the state of California, the legislature has done their very best to bury the Irwin program, and we refuse to go along with that. We're gonna forge ahead. And so some of these projects that you're looking at right now, this is what I'm gonna be asking for at the next meeting, is for everyone to put on their thinking caps. And I know I've got a list of projects that I'm gonna suggest. And I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer, so I'm looking at everybody else in the group to bring legitimate projects up that we can categorize and then have as a backlog. And then we will start looking for monies which are still out there, grants, low interest loans, partnerships, all sorts of things. And we will try and put those opportunities to the projects and have the T-Stand move forward, because it's been so valuable to our communities, both Calaveras and Tuolumne County. And I do not want to see it go away. And the other good part about it is the collaboration. Everything we've been doing for the past 8-10 years has been total consensus. Can you believe that?
Yeah.
Consensus. You don't get that anywhere. So I don't want that to go away. So
Yeah.
if you folks have some projects, bring them next week and on into the future, and let's keep this thing moving, because you guys have been a good partner in that group so far, and let's continue it.
Yeah, I think we'll have a good contingent there next week. You know, who knows what the future of IRWM as far as DWR is concerned is, but I think you're absolutely right about the collaboration and the opportunity for that. And, you bringing different stakeholders. It's not just water agencies that are there. I think that's a really important piece of it. So hopefully whatever the next, as it takes shape, again, we're able to retain that piece of it. And then, any chance we can find to collaborate on projects as well.
Well, a
We'll
big
be
portion of
there.
a contingency of that group is some of the main environmental groups, and to have them have buy-in to our projects and to have also be able to have their input so that our projects are as good as can be. How do you buy that?
It's the best way to proceed with projects that could otherwise be controversial if you've laid the groundwork and you've built those relationships with those organizations in advance. Is one of the big successes of that West Point biomass power plant was they are controversial. If they're not done right, they can they have some significant environmental impacts. And they were able to avoid any controversy, any litigation from environmental groups, because that was their strategy of reaching out, inviting them, site visits, including them early in the process, getting their input early in the process. And there was no opposition to their project and to their environmental review. I think that is incredibly valuable.
Okay. Anything else for Michael or Kelly? All right.
Thank you guys for the time. Appreciate it.
Thank you guys.
you.
We really appreciate you
Thank
coming over, and it was a great presentation. Thanks again. Okay, Melissa, next item.
Item number 4, status report on clean slate.
Before we get started, Abby, I'd like to take a 10-minute break, please. Okay, so we'll reconvene at 10:41.
You're breaking that thing?
It's, one of these days I'm gonna bang it, it's gonna go fly.
Yeah.
It's loose.
It's Rucker who used to tear
Oh, yeah,
that
he
thing up.
slammed that thing. Yeah.
Yep. Hey, we need a new one before it goes flying apart.
Are we good to go?
He's our
Are
glue.
we? Okay. Okay, I'd like to reconvene the meeting. So Melissa, our next next item of business.
Item number 4, status report on Phoenix Lakes.
Okay, good morning again, President Kearns, members of the board. Excellent presentation, Kelly, thank you. And thank you again, Michael and Kelly, for being here. So Phoenix Lake update. About a month ago, the board requested that we add this to the agenda. And so it's a very simple staff report. Eric and I put together a timeline that we included in the board packet. It's just a 2-page timeline that really just starts in November of 2022 when the board had a special meeting workshop to discuss Phoenix Lake, where we were at the time, what the priority projects were that the board were most concerned about and wanted to see move forward, and staff to look for funding. So I won't go through the whole timeline, but what the timeline represents is a series of, it identifies those 4 priority projects: the Powder Creek Water Bypass Pipeline, South Pool Dredging, East Pool Dredging, and the Boot Sedimentation Basin. So staff from there took that and applied for a grant, a DWR grant. And the project total was about $23 million. Unfortunately, we did not receive that grant through DWR. So we just kept forging ahead and looked for other opportunities to seek funding for those projects. Then we had the winter of 2023, and we had 2 disasters declared. The first disaster, 4683, with FEMA, was devastating to the North Pool of Phoenix Lake, which you're all familiar with because we've talked about it a couple of times. The reason I'm doing this part of the presentation is because Emily has been she's taken the lead on the FEMA grant funding, the public assistance through FEMA for the Phoenix Lake repairs and storm damage related projects. We currently have 3 projects with FEMA that we've worked with them since March of 2023, so about 18 months ago now. And those are outlined in your project timeline. So starting in March of 2023, we have 3 projects that are still within environmental review with FEMA. Those are the Phoenix Lake Dirt Access Turnaround Road, the North Pool of Phoenix Lake Erosion Embankment Bypass Spillway damages, and the Phoenix Lake Sediment Removal. So again, those are just specific to FEMA funding public assistance for the storm-related damages to Phoenix Lake. It doesn't account for other parts of the lake that weren't affected by the storms in that disaster. And since then, we do look at, go through grants through a lens of Phoenix Lake. It's a top priority that we're looking for grant funding for. So we continue to seek anything that we think might work within that. There's been several that we've looked at and vetted out to see how we could make that work. But I just want you to know, commitment from my staff is that Phoenix Lake is at the top of the list looking for grant funding for these projects that your board identified as priorities back in 2022. And then lastly, I'll have Eric talk about, so this year for the CIP, there are a couple of projects related to Phoenix Lake that the board adopted in the CIP. So Eric, you want to talk about those?
Sure, they're the last few items on your timeline, and just calling your attention to, well, the first being the Phoenix Lake Outlet Tower improvements. We identified around $50,000 programmed for fiscal year 27 to do a condition assessment of the outlet tower. If you've been out to the lake, which I know some of you have, that outlet tower is you know, you can visibly see the corrosion from the shoreline. Let's just put it that way. And if you're an operator and you take the boat out there and you get on the ladder to go up, the actual outlet tower moves as you're climbing up the ladder. So it definitely needs some attention. But the first step is to probably do an ROV inspection and for below the water line, and then take a look at the portion above the water line, and then design some type of plan to rehabilitate or replace it and improve the access so that operators don't have to take a boat out there in order to operate the tower gates. We also may want to bring some of that on the shoreline of the dam and give our operators a ability to just open and close gates from the shore.
Mhm. I assume this would be a fall project? And,
Yes, it likely would be. And the importance, I just want to emphasize the importance, this being the outlet that feeds the Sonora Water Treatment Plant. So it not only feeds the largest water treatment facility, but it also services the ditch. And the bypass that we have is not large enough to meet our demands. So this is a critical.
So is this something we want to get done this fall?
No, Eric Hall isn't here to speak to this. It has been in service for a number of years. We don't think that failure is imminent. This is why it's programmed in for fiscal year 27. But we also don't want to kick the can down the road too far. So our first step would be to get in there in fiscal year 27, really assess the condition, maybe design a completely new structure, which then this board would see a cost estimate for that reflected in a later fiscal year CIP. But right now, we just don't know what we're up against.
Okay, because if it's moving, it's a little concerning.
Unfortunately, I think it's embedded in some of the sediment that we want to remove from the
Sure.
lake. So, ideally, this kind of project would be undertaken in conjunction with the dredging operation of the lake, but those are two separate projects that we're requesting funding for at this moment. And this is a project we'd have to move forward with regardless of if we get grant money for the other projects.
Okay, thanks, Eric.
Okay, and then the second one is also reflected in your CIP, and it is in fiscal year 28. And it is for the potential land acquisition and this is a little sensitive because honestly, we're not in negotiations at all. And those would be subject to closed session. But we want to point out the need to acquire some land close to the lake. There are a few parcels that we've identified that would be the best. And those would allow us to deposit the sediment we removed from the North Pool, which is our sediment forebay. They also have value, or this parcel could also serve some recreational purposes. And I think the board's aware of these. Abby could put them up if there's any question of the general area we're talking about. But there's a ramp down into the North Pool, and the parcels that we've identified are adjacent to that ramp. We did place about 30 or 40,000 yards, I'm looking back at Gadiel, of material on that property with a sediment reuse agreement. That, not quite, but the other one has a picture of the ramp. But the lands could also serve as a park area because they're adjacent to the lake. I believe Horizon's report from back in 2012 even had a boardwalk potentially as a concept for that location. It interconnects with a trail system that's already there. If you know where Indigene is, people recreate, walk their dogs and all around that area. So they go around this site. And Abby's pulled it up here. There's already a trail easement that the district has secured from a public roadway there on Apple Hill Drive that would allow someone to walk to the lake. However, that trail has never been perfected and maintained. It goes through cross country and through some brush. It's on paper. It isn't really there. But it is available. And then the lands that we were most interested in are where the trail crosses through, where it says trail right there in that leader. There is also a pond you can't see. I'm not sure, Abby, if there's the other slide has a photo, but there's a pond that was used when the county dredged Phoenix Lake to settling pond, and then they took the supernatant back to the lake. So it has a lot of operational value, recreational value. It also could even be the site of a treatment facility. Your board considered a number of sites for another Sonora water treatment plant. We purchased some land. That was our preferred alternative. But, you know, this piece was in contention and was ranked pretty high in that process as well.
Okay.
I think that's kind of all I had to share with the board, but we're happy to answer any questions.
Director Ringen?
Where are we at with Indigee as far as silt removal? Is that dead in the water now?
It really, we have the grant request that Abby referred to first, the expansive, the $23 million effort, which we were unsuccessful on. We still have active requests through FEMA to remove the sediment that was deposited during the winter and to rebuild the turning bulb and the structure, the structure coming into the lake, and to rebuild some of the berm. So that is still an active application. I don't know if we have a good, clear picture, Abby, on when they may make a funding decision on that.
No.
We don't. FEMA it's again, 18 months process. It's been with EHP, our environmental review, for about 4 or 5 months now. We meet with them every other week and go over the list of projects that are still outstanding, because there's others other than Phoenix Lake. But we talk about these projects every other week. And from what we can tell from our project manager there at FEMA, he doesn't have a clear picture either. So funding everywhere has been delayed. And so every other week we keep thinking we're going to hear some kind of new news, but it's kind of a waiting game now. But we've given them everything that they need. We've gone through with a fine tooth comb on everything. Gadiel DiMattei, associate engineer, has done a ton of work on this. And so I thank Gadiel for all of his help, and Emily is staying very diligent on anything that FEMA needs.
I'll just say something about the potential for agreement with Indigene.
Oh, you can, sure.
Yeah, just to be clear, Gadiel DiMattei, associate engineer. No, it's not dead in the water, to answer your question about a future agreement with Indigene on sediment disposals. And they're still willing to work with us, and they're willing to work with us on the sediment from the storm. So just to make that clear.
Great.
Thank you.
And
Go ahead.
And how about the all the permit type things that we had to go through, like with Fish and Game, and where are we at? Are those still viable? And along with that, sediment, I mean, the last couple of winters have been sort of eye openers as far as how much water we've gotten all at one time. Is there any conversation going on with the county as far as watershed? I don't want to say restoration, but I mean, there's a lot of silt that comes in out of developments that have been approved and off roadways and things like that, that aren't doing that reservoir any good at all for years now. And where are we at with that? Is there any sort of conversation going on there?
Gadiel, do you want to come step forward and give the board an update on the permits before we talk about the watershed?
Yeah, we were actually planning on reusing our permits that we used for the dredging project because most of them are still valid and have not expired. We actually just recently extended the Fish and Wildlife permit, streambed alteration, because it was about to expire. Unfortunately, it looks like the 401 water quality permit has expired, so we'll need to revisit that and if we need that, we would need to get it again, where I'm not sure that we need it, but in order to do the emergency work. But yeah, that's where we're at with the permits.
Ready to vote, right?
Getty, help before you take off. If we don't get this silt problem that washed in from last year that we have the FEMA application in for done before this next winter hit, what kind of operational, challenges can we expect come, another winter with the silt that is washed in and then, potentially this silt migrating further and more washing in?
Yeah, this could cause more a decrease of water quality in the lake because the pond, the North Pool did as it was designed to do. It knocked down the sediment, knocked down the turbidity, and we were getting really great results even at the water treatment plant. So the sediment being in the pool is definitely going to reduce that. There's also potential for even more sediment being placed and other damage to be caused too. It's important to get it out as soon as we can as far as funding goes.
Okay, so as far as working with the county and our partnerships, I got to recognize that Sean Hembry from the county, Natural Resources and Water Agency liaison for me. We've talked, not extensively, talked about an awful lot of things when it comes to our shared resources and shared opportunities. But one of those, is the watershed that supplies water to Phoenix Lake, the Sullivan Creek watershed above Phoenix Lake. There aren't any, as I recall, there's some opportunities for watershed restoration, but none above the reservoir, but below the reservoir. And I told Sean that, TD would be much interested in that. If the county wanted to pursue, that's fine. But I don't think TD is interested in participating in stuff below the Phoenix Reservoir. But we're looking for opportunities all the time to find some grant monies to do some work in that area. There's a separation of responsibilities, though. While we both share that reservoir and the watershed, it's important to both of us. But the sediment load into Phoenix Lake is a county issue, right? From I should say from a land use planning standpoint. Things that had happened in the 80s and 90s is leading to the increase in sediment input into lake. That's a county ordinance compliance code issue that we've made very clear to the county. We think the county is to do whatever they can. I don't know, that's code enforcement or other real work that needs to be done. That's a separate issue. What's going to happen to Phoenix Lake if, that's a big if, right? A few years ago, we didn't think we'd have 13 atmospheric rivers in a single season. We had some last winter atmospheric rivers, but it was years before, right, that we had the 13 and such. So it's really going to depend on the type of winter we have that's going to impact Phoenix Lake. All I have.
Okay. Any questions for Don or Abby or Eric or Gadiel? Director Bailey.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to say I'm really grateful that you guys followed up on this, and I'm grateful to the openness for the recreational component because this is the people's water. And similar to White Pines Lake, it's kind of in that same elevation. And so I just wanted to say that I sent Don you and Sean sent it to you and Eric and Abby the upcoming grants from the Sierra Nevada Conservancy because we tend not to look there, but that's So some of the deadlines are really tight, but Ron, this gets into your IRWM stuff, but at any rate, please take a look at that, or if you're not already familiar, because a lot of it has to do with providing for disadvantaged communities, youth access to their water and the public's access to their water. Now, Kelly, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that there is non-motorized recreation. There's still boating, but it's non-motorized, correct, at White Pines? Right. So that is allowed also at our Phoenix Lake as well, is non-motorized recreation. And I think OHVs are potentially banned. They're supposed to be banned around that, well, particularly Lions for sure, because it is part of our drinking water system. But when you just look at the money involved for natural resources, for community access to their water, for disadvantaged communities, that's money. There's some firefighting type money for vegetation management, USDA money. So please take a look. National Park. This may deal with acquisition. So I would just encourage you guys to, and Eric, forgive me if you're already familiar with this granting source, these granting sources. Some of the, but it's right. It's right up our alley because we're in a watershed and it's declining, and it's. So, but the state recognizes how important it is because it's mixed with our drinking water. I mean, I'm not saying anything new here. So at any rate, please check those sources out. So I think we've lost some windows for some of that because the timeline was tomorrow, the deadline, especially for youth access to their water. But some of them, no, some of them, we still have a little time if we were decided to apply. So anyway, that's all I wanted to share. I'd gladly send you a copy too if you would like.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
You want to? Yeah. Okay. That's all. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Anything else? Okay, thank you, staff. Appreciate that update. Thank you, Sean, for attending too. Appreciate having you here. You bet. Okay, next item there, Melissa.
Staff reports?
Who wants to go first?
I'll go first, and I only have one item. On July 30th, I was invited to speak, question answering more than speaking, at the Sierra Professionals Association, 7 a.m. on July 30th. And I think that's my third time visiting that group of professionals. One time I had Jennifer Batt, Associate Engineer, provide an update on the regional wastewater treatment plan. I just went by myself this time and provided a lot of opportunities for questions and answerings. And I think it's a good opportunity because it amazes me, as much as we work here every day and we understand what's going on and how our water gets from here to there and how it gets from there to there, and how it's not really well understood, as we heard from CCWD, how it's really not understood by the masses. And so I was able to answer a handful of questions that I think was important to them for their knowledge. Anyway, that's the end of my report.
Okay. Eric?
I'll just give the board a couple project updates from the capital schedule. Techite, you heard Kelly speak about their trials and tribulations with that product, and we're down to our last 500 or 600 feet of Techite that we know of in the system. And the contractor's done a great job on that. Zone 4 tank, the tank itself is complete. Our crews are in building the pump station right now, and once that's done and PG&E electrical service is established, then we can start putting water in that, and then we can double back and abandon the old white fur tank and pump station. Apple Colony, I think there was a press release that went out on that. Our crews did a fantastic job, and that is complete and paved out, and customers who have previously were using ditch water in the home now have clean potable water for consumption in the home. So that's good. Mono Village tank, we're still waiting on the contractor to move in and do the foundation on that. And the submittals have been approved, but we're getting on in the summer here. So fortunately, it is a bolted steel tank. So once the foundation's done and the tank is stabilized, they will be able to do the erection of the tank in sort of inclement weather. Mono Village Lift Station bypass, we've already talked about that, and Director Ringen, you pointed out that you were pleased with that project being done. So I believe the retention's being released. Gadiel was managing that project, so we're buttoning up all the final contract details with that. Our crews continue to work on the Mount Provo project. There's probably 2 or 3 weeks left, I think, on that, and then we'll be able to bring water from the upper basin system down into Ponderosa. Had a meeting with operations staff yesterday about how that will interface with the Ponderosa water treatment plant. We can't turn Ponderosa off entirely because until we have Sierra Pines, there isn't enough treatment capacity in upper basin to fully satisfy demands in Ponderosa. I forgot on the sewer side, Willow Springs Lift Station, our crews are working on that. They have both sumps in. And that's probably like the 7th or 8th lift station our crews have built. So they're on cruise control there, but it'll be really nice to have that facility online so we can demo the old, which is, Director Boatwright would know, it's either the largest or second largest by volume lift station that we have in the district. So those are the updates I have. And then on design, Upper Cedar Ridge tanks and the Gibbs tank, we're actively working on those. Sites are clear, geotech's done, and they're on the capital schedule for this year. So we'll try our best to get our crews to move in the spring, but undoubtedly those will likely go to next fiscal year capital budget as well.
Good. Thank you, Eric. Carolyn?
Yes, hi. Can you hear me? I don't know if it's working. This has been a busy season for finance, but just to give you an update, we are on the tail end of closing fiscal year 24. So a report to you is coming up very shortly, should be ready by the next board meeting. After that, that will be unaudited financials to you, but then we do have our external audit scheduled for the week of September 16th. And after that's complete, then they will also report out to you once they're complete with their audit. So just wanted to give you an update on where we're at with fiscal year end.
Great, thank you. Abby?
Okay, and I want to echo on the Techite line. We have a lot of residents in that area that have had some impacts from the Techite line. We've had many mainline breaks in the area over the course of the last many years. And now there's a lot of activity there. So we plan on sending a nice letter to all of them, just thanking them for their patience and cooperation, because there's been a lot going on in there. And Gadiel's done a fantastic job, you know, kind of trying to keep everyone really updated and communicate well with them so they know what to expect and when the project will be complete. My other report is sort of for Eric Hall. He's not here, but you may have heard there was a little bit going on in the county on Friday, very late Thursday night and into the early morning hours. And throughout Friday, we have the Canyon Fire that was outside of Tuolumne. This is a photo on your screen from our Tuolumne water treatment plant. So we had a really close call with the Canyon Fire. The firefighters have done a fantastic job, kept it at 85 acres. It's now 83% contained, but it was pretty scary throughout the night, early morning hours of Friday. We had folks going all over the place in Tuolumne, Ponderosa, monitoring where we were at. Eric was in really close communication with PG&E and CAL FIRE. The communication, I will say, usually in emergencies, you hear, okay, what was the weakness? Most of the time it's communication. I want to say that was a huge strength in this fire. We feel very supported by our partner agencies and the county OES. And so we just wanted to thank all of them for that communication. There was a chance of PG&E having to turn off the power to all of Ponderosa Hills. We have a water treatment plant there. We have a couple of very critical pump stations there. And so that was a concern for us, making sure we had backup power for those areas, making sure that we had power in other areas such as Tuolumne, but also just monitoring our own employees. We had 4 employees who were evacuated from their homes. And so there, also some critical staff members that were needing to respond in the emergency too. So I just want to thank them for that, and a lot of folks that were on the warning list. And we opened up the emergency command center 0600 on Friday morning, and we closed it right before noon because of how comfortable we felt from that, just with the communication with CAL FIRE. Other than that, we may have some more information, but I just thought I would share that with you, that we fared obviously very well. We're very lucky that the winds didn't pick up that day, and just appreciative of all the staff and how willing everyone is to get up and help in the middle of the night at the drop of a hat. So that's my report.
Thank you, Abby. Okay, we'll move on to Director's Communication Reports. Let's start, Director Jacobs, start on this side.
Not much to report. I did attend a meeting of the local farm bureau last night. There was no presentation, just basically answered a few questions and a lot of listening and learning. So thanks.
Okay. Director Ballin.
Yeah, I just wanted to go over the, again, for the Mountain County Legislative Tour will be October 3-4, and that will focus with CCWD and Utica Power and Water on the 3/4 mile flume in the system over there. So it's really right in our backyards. Sign up. And that's October 3-4 through Mountain Counties. Should
And the
be,
location
pardon me?
and the location.
Well, I guess we're going to take off at McKay's, but I think they'll usually meet either at CCWD or Utica. So that'll be Joel Metzger or Kelly and Michael Minkler.
Okay.
Yeah. And then what we're going to be looking at is the flume that burned. It's on a south facing slope, very, very hot compared to ours on the north facing slope in the canyon. And so we'll be just, I'm sure, discussing a lot of their system and how they manage it. It should be, and then there's always this little social get together and opportunities to network.
Okay. Thank
Okay,
you.
that's October 3-4. Sign up through Mountain Counties. I think, Melissa, you sent that around. You may send, okay, thank you.
Director Reagan has a question.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to point out to the rest of the board members that I feel that this is going to be really a great educational opportunity, because the Darby fire took out that flume. And this is what we are facing with our flume. It's not ours yet, and I sure hope it's going to be soon, but the PG&E flume. So what they went through was every bit what we will have to go through if the South Fork Stanislaus River Canyon catches fire. We need to get on top of this. This is why I was so emphatic about having that community watershed committee meeting, and that will be coming before the board for our getting behind staff and whatever the finding is to make that happen as soon as possible, the alleviation of that problem. So that will be a good education deal, that trip, because that was huge. Cut the water off for everybody down in Angels Camp and everything else. And TUD, we're responsible for 44,000 people, the hospital, all of the businesses and everything else. And when that water from that flume gets cut off, I don't know what we're gonna do. So it's long overdue getting it figured out.
Well, we live in a watershed, and I won't debate you on that, since I worked on the Darby and it wasn't the end of the world and we got water to the community. Yeah, it was a hardship, but look at the cost of doing something else. So I don't want to go there, but I do want to say that part of this the importance of this is we forget about the atmospheric river part of this. And we have these stall outs, and what this trip will show is McKay's Reservoir. And there was an atmospheric river that stalled out early on in the game on the North Fork of the stand, which our county line is that North Fork. And that thing unleashed about, I don't know, I'm going to make this up, 97,000 cubic feet of debris that plugged McKay's and the capacity of McKay's. To this date, they still haven't dredged it yet, but we do focus on fire, which is really amazing. But the other side of it is the atmospheric rivers and what we're dealing with sediment and silt and undersizing stuff. And so I'm hoping that'll be part of the discussion too, what to do about that as well, because, that's the other side of the coin, or the atmospheric rivers. And that was an enormous amount of silt that came down the North Fork.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I don't give a damn what the problem is. I just want to find the solutions to it. Bottom line.
Well, we've already seen with the Canyon Fire that we know how to rally, and we know how to tackle it, and we know how to organize and form an incident command. And I want to thank you, Abby, because if our crews are involved, that's an emotional hardship with families that have to be evacuated. Also, you just get spread out with emotional resources, and fire is incredibly emotional, and so. It's amazing that everybody rallies in terms of risk mitigation. We'll never be able to, all we can do is mitigate risk. We can't stop nature, but we can try to mitigate it and then respond. The other thing I just wanted to share really quickly was, okay, so that was the October 3-4, great opportunity to learn. And then Friday, August 9th, I attended the Board of Directors, Mountain County again. We went over that Senate Bill 1088, which is we're all in favor of. And then also the Prop 4, which will be on our ballot. And that again has 1.5 billion for wildfire protection. But it also has, I thought Don may like this because we're also using our ditch system for fire protection as well, 700 million to enhance our green connectivity. So that's part of that bond. And again, that's what the people of state of California hopefully will pass. Let me see if there's anything else on that.
That was Prop 4, Barbara?
Prop 4. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. We all know about California Senator Marie and her switching parties. So I won't go into that, but we had a long discussion on that as well. Quite, it's good. And I think that, oh yeah, then in August, though, the end of August, there is also a tour for up at Placer Water Agency. So that should be good if anybody wants to attend. Is that it? I don't have it right here, but at any rate, that's Andy Fecco, general manager up there. And those are always informative as well. So maybe again, we can pass around those dates for the Mountain County's website for everybody if they want to go. And that's all I have to report.
Thank you.
Okay.
Director Ringen.
Okay. On 7/26, I met with Sean Hembry, and he was nice enough to give up some of his valuable time, and he and I discussed numerous items, and it centered around TUD, the county, and the T-Stand Irwin, and what we could do together in order to move things forward in a positive way. Shortly after that, I met with a representative from Representatives McClintock, one of his staff members, and impressed on that staff member. I wish I'd been able to talk to Representative McClintock in person. I've talked to him numerous times in the past over the years, but we've got a real problem, and it's costing us a ton of money, and it's a waste of time and everything else. Our GM and consultants and lawyer and the Chicken Ranch band just can't make any headway on with the Bureau of Reclamation for our water, which is 40 years in not getting out of New Maloney. So at any rate, I'm still on it. I impress on that, you know, in the times now, we're tired of waiting. We need Representative McClintock to kick the Bureau of Reclamation's door down and get something done. So I'm after that. We'll see. On 7:30, I also attended the Sierra Professional Association meeting, and I had the opportunity to critique our GM's talk with them. I didn't know he's going to be speaking there, and I was going to go just because I'd been a member of that in the past and wanted to go back and get relationships renewed and all. But at any rate, he did a good job. I was gonna maybe ask him one of those nasty questions, really stump him somehow, but I didn't. And then on 8-1, we did have the TUD Community Watershed Committee meeting, and I've already talked about that, about the possibility of a disaster with the main canal or the flume, and how we want to support staff and wherever the consultant will be if we get that grant to find a way to alleviate that issue. So that's it for me.
Okay, thank you. Director Boatright.
No report.
Okay. The only thing I have to report on is the LAFCO, Tuolumne County LAFCO meeting yesterday, August 12th. General Manager Perkins asked me to attend in his absence, and the two items that we were most interested in, unfortunately, were tabled. The city has two new representatives to LAFCO. Now they have Suzanne Cruz and Ann Segerstrom, and both of them asked for additional time to review those items, so to bring themselves up to speed. And the other commissioners agreed with that. And I, looking at the paperwork that they had supplied, I don't blame them. There was a lot to it. So that'll be taken up at, they kicked around a few dates, but I believe they're going to go after at least one of them on their next meeting. So just wanted to give that update, and that's all I have. So,
I have something else. I
Okay.
forgot. Okay.
all
In
right,
the interest of disclosure.
okay, go ahead.
Okay. So I attended July 31st, the Aqua Region 3-4 meeting, and I neglected, and this is important, you know, this is what I did. And so we're Region 3 of Aqua, but we're also the same similar overlay for mountain counties. So mountain counties is more nimble because that's just their region, whereas Aqua, we're one of many regions, you know, LA and the coastal communities, et cetera. So we had this joint 3-4 presentation. So both Aqua, Region 3 and Region 4 representatives were there, board members were there, and Michael was represented. He was out sick that day, but that board was fully represented. But what we did is we learned about where Region 3 water goes and how it goes into Region 4, if you will, which is the Sacramento, South Sac area that some of our northern water agencies in Region 3 sell their water to, and they have these conjunctive use things, and they discuss things. Well, how does this look with the public when we're trying to conserve and yet we're selling water? So they address these pretty interesting questions. So, and again, this is before it gets to the Delta. So we see sort of its next water, Chucky's next habitation. So that was interesting, I felt. And then somebody talked about the sort of the morphing of the RWMs into this other pilot project thing. So I just want to say it's I don't know how it's going to work out, but they did touch on it, and it's still going to cover multiple sector water management, which includes forest and wildfire management, hydropower, ecosystems, groundwater, water supply, flood management, water quality and recreation. So that's going to align, I think, with they didn't mention climate change in here, but we're responding to climate change overall in our fire and our atmospheric river. So anyway, stay tuned, Ron, because they're not abandoning you guys. They're just retooling it.
I know I'm keeping a close eye on it.
Okay. And that's all I have to report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right. Well, with that, I believe we are done. So let's adjourn.